Kamala Harris emerged as the Democratic candidate little more than a month ago when allies President Joe Biden, 81 years old, forced him to quit the race. If successful, she stands to make history as the first woman elected as the US president. And for more, DD India's Caroline Malone joins us live from Washington, D.C. Caroline, as Kamala Harris accepts her nomination, take us through the key arguments that she presents that makes her, according to Kamala Harris, in her words, the next president of the United States.
So we heard a good balance of who she is as a person on Thursday night, and also some hints and some ideas of what her policies would be like if she was president of the United States. In terms of who she is as a person, she spoke about her upbringing. She spoke in particular about her mother, an Indian immigrant who'd come to the United States for an education and stayed. She spoke about how her mother had instilled in her and her sister Maya a strong belief in solutions and being a community member and believing in equal rights for all of their neighbours. She spoke about how an experience when she was younger, when a friend came to her and said she was being sexually abused, and she asked the friend to move in with them so that she could be protected in her own home. She spoke about how that inspired her in part to become a prosecutor. And that led to this theme of her really explaining why she would be a president for all people, why she would act to protect everyone. And she said, you know, her experiences show that she's done that. And that was definitely a theme we heard from other people on the stage, not just people that know her and love her like her sister and family members, but also people that have worked with her, who've spoken about how she has stood up to big tech, how she's stood up to corporations, how she's stood up to criminals. Harris also referred to herself as from law enforcement, which is quite an interesting term that she's used, because that's something that can, you know, really strike a chord potentially with a lot of different people, moderates and potentially conservatives in the United States, who might be considering whether to vote for her. She also spoke about the importance to her and her family of women's rights. We know that's something that she's been working on very strongly as Vice President Harris on behalf of the Biden-Harris administration, particularly with a view to, you know, what's happened with the repealing of abortion rights in the United States. We've seen that in her track record. She said she would enshrine that into law if Congress allowed her to when she becomes president, in her words. She also spoke about border policy, how she said she would pass a bipartisan border policy. That's something that was considered by Congress, but ultimately voted down in the last few months. She said she would move to protect that. She said it's possible to be a country that both respects immigrants, but also is able to fix what is wrong with the border system right now. And that's quite an important balance to strike to really appeal to voters. We know it's something that many Republicans have been complaining about, that they don't think the Biden-Harris administration has done enough to protect and secure the borders. She also spoke about using tax breaks to help the middle class, really uplifting, she said, more than 1 million Americans, protecting social security and also healthcare. So really a plethora of different things she spoke about, as well as gun violence and the need to do more on that. That's something that's really resonated across this convention.
And of course, the sharpest attack by Kamala Harris were reserved for her opponent, Donald Trump. Now, what happens next in the context? A debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris is what we're looking forward to?
It certainly is. You know, in just a couple of weeks' time, we're due to have this, you know, much anticipated debate between Harris and Trump. We know, of course, that the last debate was between Trump and Biden, and that led to the situation that we're in now, where Biden was basically deemed by his own party not to be the right candidate, and Harris has then stepped in and now is gaining a lot more traction and momentum amongst followers. You know, Trump spoke to Fox News, a big US media company, just shortly after Harris's speech on Thursday night. He criticised her strongly and said she didn't address properly crime or border issues or many of the things that he has been complaining about, inflation and the things that concern Republican voters. He also spoke about how, you know, he had been willing to debate with Biden on CNN, one of the more Democratic-leaning channels here, how he's also willing to do so on ABC, so confirming there that that debate will take place. He said he's looking forward to it. You know, we've heard from him in the past that he thinks it will potentially be an easy debate, but I think it will be an absolutely interesting one, because we have this person, Kamala Harris, who has framed herself and is known as a prosecutor, someone that's taken criminals through the justice system. And then we have, of course, Donald Trump, who has been found guilty of a number of crimes just this year. So, you can only expect that that would be a large part of the debate that Harris chooses to bring up. And it definitely was something that she also spoke about on the stage in Chicago at the convention as well.
Caroline, thank you for joining us with those updates from Washington, D.C.